Good morning. Happy Saturday. Let's get into it. I think we're going to finish it today. We've really just got like the last sort of like niggly bits. Oh, there's an extra picture of Arena. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's so many little... Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to find their wives. And I don't know how I'm supposed to find these pictures. This is hard. What's her stupid name? Arena. Oh yeah, that's her second picture. Oop. I guess I can pick random names. I need a yearbook. Like, I think that's what I'm looking for. But I don't know how to find it. Grandma Laura. I have that already, don't I? Yeah. I think because I guessed a little, but also he's named Carl for a reason. Brother trouble. There's something about Ron, which I know is one of the Wind Sons. Yeah. Ron married Penelope. Yeah. Ron Roottrees is a small screen director and head of the RR Productions. He directed episodes of a few other shows before showrunning and creating the one-season hit Brother Trouble. The show was canceled partway through season 2. Defunct production company responsible for Brother Trouble. You find a comment on a Usenet board stating that Brother Trouble ended up being an ironic name considering the rumors about RR Productions, Ron, and Robbie Roottrees. What are the rumors? All right. There's not much relevant information about Robbie Roottrees. In a comment thread on a message board about television cliches, you find a thread called Why Was Brother Trouble Canceled? One user speculates, I think it's because the writing went really downhill in season 2. They actually had an episode where Roxy was addicted to sniffing markers. Another person replied, maybe it's due to the rumor about Robbie Roottrees in Silver Screen magazine. There's a link to some kind of article, but appears to be dead. Silver Screen magazine. I did. Sweet. Silver Screen magazine was a Hollywood insiders magazine, focusing less on actors and actresses, more about the nitty-gritty of writing, directing, costuming, set design, film production, and other elements of filmmaking. It ran from 83 to 93. It was bought by a bigger, more recognizable magazine a few years ago, and the website now redirects to the new magazine. The new magazine doesn't appear to have any relevance to your case. Okay. Silver Screen, Ron Roottrees. There's an article about Ron Roottrees from 1984 entitled Don't Blame Nepotism, He Gets Results. After finding some small screen success, first as a director for many soap opera episodes, and then stepping in as the showrunner to turn around a few struggling productions, Ron has decided to start his own television company. Ron was born in the US but grew up in Paris with his once famous mother and his brother Robbie. He gobbled up American cinema whenever he could, and when he was old enough, returned to Hollywood to attend film school. He brings a special kind of charisma and an eye for unusual shots, particularly when it comes to comedy. Those he's worked with have gone on record as saying he's an attentive director who can work with actors to make sure the timing of a joke lands perfectly. Ron plans to pitch new shows to major television studios as soon as 1986. Until then, he plans to find the right project. He has occasionally called upon his younger brother for script punch-ups and has thought about bringing him into the fold. A small rumors article from 1992 that claims that self-taught television screenwriter Robbie Roottrees was allegedly tried and convicted under the name Robert in a French court of law. It seems he, again allegedly, embezzled from the company RR Productions to fuel a gambling habit that left him hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. He then fled to Paris, where he grew up, and then, Silver Screen continues to insist this is all very much allegedly, assaulted an officer who came to question him. The article's author says they were unable to get a statement from French authorities, but received information from an anonymous source and were able to confirm through public record that there was a trial involving Robert Roottrees around the time that Brother Trouble was canceled. Yeah. Okay. What was his wife's name? Penelope Tessa Green. Okay. I guess, what's it? RR Productions. That's what it is, right? Yeah, RR Production. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Chris Rafferty. That gave me more info, but it didn't really... The Laugh Lounge. I've read that already. Yeah, I need a school. I need like a yearbook. I don't know where else I'm supposed to get these pictures. I guess it's hint. With his email. Where is it? The Roottrees curves. Oh. You find a simple page called The Art. I don't know, you could Google an email address. Find a simple page called The Art of Rafferty, copyright 1997, on Prodigy that lists the author's email address. It's criffref975 at prodigy.us. Below, a bunch of GIFs that say under construction. There are a few art pieces. The first is a painting captioned "Me and my fiance Lulu." A painting I did for my first year of college that I plan to give her when we get married in May. Go Tartans. Okay, Tartans. There's an old collage called Cousins, which seems to meet up of 3 scrambled images. The accompanying artist's statement says, "We had to create a piece of art about our family. I asked as many of my extended family of cousins for their pictures as I could, even some I've never met. Only a few of them got back to me, and my teacher said I wasn't allowed to use pictures of Raina, Riley, or Rose, so I had to get creative and use only my 3rd cousins. This includes Davy, he swims for Yukon, and Bethany's yearbook picture. She's Davy's younger sister." Okay. So he's actually a college student. And Stephanie, who's only a child. Where's Stephanie? Chris's artwork has been added to your evidence. The cousins' photos will need to be unscrambled before you can use them. I downloaded a new app, Pixpop, to edit the photos. Okay. Go Tartans. Yeah. When you search Yukon, you find out that the University of Connecticut and that Davy Kellogg is on their swim team, the Huskies. They also came in second in this most recent competition, but that doesn't seem relevant. The mascot for Carnegie Mellon University. It doesn't seem relevant. Okay. Okay. Self-portrait of me and fiance Lulu. Cute. College student, maybe, or he's an artist. Oh. This is Chris Rafferty's cousin's art project and is said to include pictures of Davy, Bethany, and Stephanie. Yeah, I will extract them. Okay. Well, that's interesting. What a neat little puzzle. Okay. Dichotomai. Oop. Oop. There we go. Slide the photo back into shape. Oh, weird. I don't think I need a hint. Thank you, though. Okay, I fixed all those photos. All right. This is Davy. Middle school. Where is that? Yeah, Davy's the swimmer. Bethany's yearbook picture. And Stephanie. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I hope I have those wives right, I guess. So the wives are wrong. Top secret.
My genealogy genie. If you're reading this, it means you've locked in 49 blood relatives. Congratulations. I knew you could do it. There are 2 more entries on the family tree I'd like you to consider. These last 2 are optional. You can summon me whenever you wish. However, this will end your search and reveal the truth. So make sure you're ready.
What is it? He's Clancy Edward, and this one's Edward Clancy. Roottrees. It was in a diary somewhere. Yeah, local is EC. Something Miller. Yeah, Mr. Miller. Yeah, Edward Clancy Roottrees. Edward Clancy Roottrees. It's in the one about the motorbike. E.C. and John. John Miller. Okay. And I've switched those. I'm ready. Yeah, confirm. Ooh. We did it.
So, you thought EC was Edward Clancy Rootree, and his partner was John Miller?
Yes, and I'm right.
That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm Sam Madsen, though you know me as Samantha Rootree. Yep, I got old. The only picture you have of me is from 40 years ago. My book tells the truth about Elias, of 5 pieces, and my parents. Not my biological parents, Elias Jr. and Patsy. My fathers, Edward Clancy Rootree and John Miller. By now, you've either read Lauren's diaries, or you're just an incredible guesser. Lauren was right. I hated the 5 pieces. She just didn't know my full reasoning. My father, Edward Clancy, was a great man, but his identical twin Clancy and his father, Elias, were not. At age 16, my father was caught kissing a farmhand. Back then, they wouldn't even acknowledge gay people existed. Having one in the family was unthinkable. The same year, I was born. A bastard granddaughter. 2 stains on Elias's perfect family. He decided to fix both. They tried to erase Edward Clancy. They even removed his 5 pieces flavor. His name was deemed a dirty word. He became EC.
Yeah, egg cream.
We were sent to the farm, and the 5 pieces did their best to keep the next generation away, to isolate me from family. But Elias couldn't erase us from existence. Laura never realized I was the little girl from her diary. Who could blame me for being so confused that day? Her father was an exact copy of mine, except without the beard. And while the 5 pieces celebrated a new factory, farmhands did the real work. It's a fluke there's a picture of my father at all, but there he is in the background. The 6th 5-piece. Patsy returned, and things got complicated for Elias. She fought for my freedom, from a life she deemed unworthy.
Oh, I don't have this.
Elias relented, so long as I never learned the truth or receive inheritance. They knew I'd help my father. At Elias's will reading, I learned part of the truth. The rest I learned at home. I began to hate the 5 pieces. My father made me stay silent. He was worried history would repeat, and that his grandchildren would become outcasts. His fears weren't unfounded. As you know, my son Ernie died a few years ago. He had trained to take over as president. But due to family politics, or perhaps hubris, it went to Guy, a real Rootree. He nearly ruined the company. When Ernie took over, he saved the operation. Over 13 years, he made the family billions. Ernie earned about $36. They got by on Debbie's salary, but when he fell ill, he couldn't pay his medical bills. His death was my tipping point. Originally, my book was meant to expose Elias's hypocrisy. Until I started to look into the other dirty laundry. Ron tried to have Robbie removed from the trust, but couldn't. Robbie was a blood relative, even out of wedlock. That sounded familiar. The Clancid Trust that Elias established was designed to secure his family's future. His entire family's future. He couldn't write exceptions in without the whole thing falling apart. My book can definitively prove that Elias was not the paragon of virtue he's heralded as, and that my daughter and granddaughters are just as much family, at least in the eyes of the Trust, as anyone else. The Clancid Trust will secure their future. They can decide what to do with their shares. But I'm old, and I'm not in it for the money. The truth has been eating away at me for years, but now I can set the record straight, thanks to you. As someone who enjoys searching for the truth, you might understand the power it has. Whitewashing the past to protect the status quo can lead to repercussions in the present and future. So thank you. You knocked it out of the park. With your expert work, the truth will come to light. And when it does, my share of the Clancid Trust is yours. Like I said at the beginning, set for life. Looking at the family tree on your wall, now with my father's, everything finally feels complete. Unless a whole lot more Roottrees somehow appear from thin air, this is the last time I'll come knocking. Thanks again, and so long.
Nice. Happy Pride. We got a secret gay son. Who? Rootree Mania is now unlocked. What is Rootree Mania? Pray tell. A secret Rootree. Is that Rootree? Like, is this how I get to Rootree Mania? No? Okay. How get there? Oh. No, whole new mystery. Okay. Oh, there's more. Great.
Hi, I'm Clark.
Yeah, we know
Probably
you.
Not who you expected to be knocking. Life's funny sometimes. You've done well staying anonymous. It took us a while to track you down. A lot has happened in the last year. Far too much of it public. But there's stuff going on behind the scenes, too. I never wanted to be president. I'm not
You're
great with
president?
stress. With my mother's deteriorating I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because part of the fallout of Sam's book is that everyone's coming out of the woodwork. Now that it's public knowledge the Clancy Trust covers any Roottrees despite their history with us, a lot of potential cousins have surfaced.
Uh-huh.
You may have seen that man on the cover of News Time. It was a disaster for us.
News
And then
time.
Miracle went and made it all about himself. The long and short of it is a lot of potential cousins just showed up. Sam's helping some of them, but she's not really going about it the right way. And she's not taking calls from anyone in the family. I let it slip through a mutual friend that I found you, and I was stopping in. It's manipulative, but I'm hoping she'll reach out to you. You can let her know I'm on her side. In the meantime, if you're willing, I can share our files with you. Pass them along to Sam if she reaches out. I'm genuinely hoping she'll realize I'm an ally. Feel free to do your own research. I've been told you enjoy things like this. To each their own.
Possible infidelity. Is that why they're blocked off like this? Wow, dude. Top secret. Wooey. 1921, 1949, 75 to 82, and 98. Okay. One sec. Gotta send some sweeties. All right. Today, August 3rd, 1999. So it was December 6th, 98 when they died. There was a knock at your door. Clark Rafferty LaRue, the current president of the Roottrees Candy Company, explained that multiple people have come out of the woodwork to claim to be Roottrees. He has been trying to work with Sam, but she has not answered his calls. He also handed you a letter saying that you could share with Sam that said the following. To both of you. The company I'd hired to help us with the Clancy Trust is busy pouring through the entire family's history, as well as people they may have had contact with. Get out of here. That said, the family is not particularly happy with this and are doing their best to slow things down. Many of them are actively avoiding our interviews. Every time there's a high-profile public case, it causes headaches. So please, I don't mind if you do your research, but I ask you to stop going to the press. Instead, we have a highly trained team of lawyers to back you up. We're ready and willing to verify anyone and everyone you believe could be realistically part of a relationship that led to the birth of a new root tree. Just tell us who to investigate by filling in the new sections of the tree, and we'll take the time to handle everything that the timeline checks out. Keep in mind why we're here. If someone didn't have a child or has already been disqualified by our lawyers, like in the case of the girl with the negative DNA test, there won't be a place for them on the tree. We're not just looking for affairs and infidelities. We're only looking for the ones that led to potential new root trees. Some spots in the new section will be marked with a tree icon. Those areas are reserved for members of the original family tree you filled in 8 months ago. Just like last time, be sure to use birth names for everyone you add. Married names or nicknames won't be enough. To start sorting out the infidelities, I recommend you turn your eyes to the men in positions of power. I'd love to say that's only because it would have been a lot harder for the women to hide 9 months of pregnancy and birth without the family noticing, but I can't. I'll be blunt. I'm no stranger to infidelity. I wish I could claim that I was a perfect husband, but you've seen the family tree, so why pretend? Some of us learned how to wield our family name and fortune to our benefit. Consequences be damned. I can't change the past or unhurt those I've betrayed. Instead, all I can do is be honest with myself and to you, refuse to make any more mistakes, and do my best to sort out the various messes we've left behind. So please fill in the tree, and together we can figure out how to begin to make amends. Good luck, and thank you both. Clark. Okay. Previously on. This is a new investigation with a new focus. After many months of newfound interest in the Roottrees, it is recommended you try and catch up with some of what happened last time. Some of the web searches may yield new or different results, and some books and magazines from your previous investigation may be relevant to your new one. It's also a much more widespread search. The list of first and last names you can choose from will contain red herrings. Not all of them will be used. Okay. Below is a reminder of some of the most notable beats of your initial dive into the Roottrees family. All evidence from before is still available, and for your convenience, any searches that do not lead to new information still function as they did during your first investigation. The Roottrees Candy Company was founded by Elias St. Gwyneth many years ago. The entire family has a financial reliance on the health of that company. Yeah, they all get a share, but then the president only makes the price of one box of 5 pieces or whatever. Most of the action took place in and around Butler County, Pennsylvania, where the company was initially located. Elias, Carl, and Raina were on the cover of magazines. Other notable Roottrees, such as Lauren, Miracle, and Jim, had physical media. Lauren's 2 diaries, the most useful resources overall. The 5 pieces were Elias's children. The original 5 pieces were named after them. There were 5 presidents of the Roottrees Company, many featured in periodicals. Stephanie Jones and Brian Jones were featured in campaign posters and led to Carolyn Morden's art book, which enabled you to fill out more. Many of the younger Roottrees were found by following a complex rabbit hole through a conspiracy site that led to finding a searchable web address for Chris Rafferty. November Roottrees was really difficult to place. Her occupation could only be found via Brian Jones' website. Ronald and his brother Robert go by Ron and Robbie. Both worked on a TV show called Brother Trouble till Robbie embezzled money and fled to Paris. I'm trying to remove. Sam and her father were cryptically mentioned in a book about historical letters. I didn't get this piece of, evidence. I also didn't get this family man. A few dead ends and red herrings. Aloysius Herring Roottrees claimed he was a Roottrees but wasn't. Family Man, a book about Elias Roottrees, turned out to be propaganda. Lauren's other books, historical romance novels, were not very useful. Carolyn Morden's sculptures were not useful. That's what you think. It has been 8 months since you helped Sam Madsen with the research necessary for her book. Sam was true to her word and paid you an incredibly large sum of money. She never mentioned you by name, however, so you've managed to keep a low profile. The Roottrees, on the other hand, have not. Below is a summary of notable events since the book's release, though you can refresh your memory in full detail by searching online. 6 pieces. Sam Madsen's book about Elias Roottrees was released in February. It was a bestseller for a few months. At the time, Carl had not yet been replaced. The Roottrees Rift. In March, the Roottrees Company stumbled publicly as they attempted to respond to the book's release with multiple conflicting press releases and a clear lack of leadership. Clark Rafferty LaRue. Clark was announced as the permanent successor to Carl Roottrees and welcomed Sam Madsen to the family officially. The company hired an outside legal group to handle the changes to the Clansett Trust. This included any other new questions of lineages. The 5 Bs. After this announcement, there was a rash of different people claiming to be Roottrees, mostly dismissed as opportunists and scammers. The highest profile of these was a rapper named Felix Fellows, who changed his moniker to 5Ps as a publicity move at the same time. 5Ps is the only notable person on the updated tree. Okay. Roottrees Mania. In another high-profile misstep, Miracle Roottrees publicly and vehemently denied that 5Ps was a Roottrees. The Roottrees legal team then offered to do a DNA test to get 5Ps to drop his claim, and in a moment that caught what seemed like the entire world by storm, the test proved he was a Roottrees. Suddenly, the world was obsessed with the Roottrees. Anonymom and Jane Doe Roottrees. In July, an anonymous woman, who they began to refer to as Anonymom, appeared in interviews with her face and voice disguised. She claimed that an affair with a Roottrees led to the birth of her daughter, aka Jane Doe Roottrees. If true, this would make her daughter yet another secret Roottrees and therefore entitled to a share of the Clansett Trust. Nobody knew it at the time, but this would turn into the last chapter in the Roottrees Mania saga. As more and more of Anonym's story came out, people began to notice how much it echoed 5Ps in nearly every significant way. The court of public opinion began to turn, confirming the world's suspicions. The DNA test, orchestrated by lawyers on both sides, proved that her daughter was not a Roottrees. This final event caused public disappointment, smugness from doubters, countless accusations of the entire ordeal being an elaborate hoax or attempt at fraud. Things got a bit ugly, and the fun of Roottrees Mania seemed to disappear overnight. It's a month later, and it feels like a distant memory. Okay, so lots to go on. And there's a star. So this is 5Ps. Well, I guess we'll start there. Might be easiest. Let's start with Clark. Okay. Okay. So I have all of my periodicals still, which is good. Search. Okay. So there's an older version. All right. Clark Rafferty LaRue is the new president of the Roottrees Corporation. This does not include Root, which appears to have its own new leadership. Okay. In early March of 1999, it was announced that both Clark Rafferty LaRue and Ron Roottrees would be taking over for what was essentially described as a transitional period in the aftermath of Six Pieces. About 2 weeks later, the company released a press statement that thanked Ron for his work, but announced that Clark would be the new permanent president. Most of the information about Clark you knew already. Many descriptions of him tend to focus on his advertising career and that of his mother. And that his mother was Lauren Roottrees. Few seem to touch on his complex and volatile marital history. Since taking over, Clark has tried to remain out of the spotlight, but did have one notable foray into the public eye. He gained a lot of support when his first move was a statement in favor of accepting Sam and her family into the trust. This also served as an announcement that the Clancy Trust would no longer be handled by anyone in the family, since due to their financial motivation, none of them could ever be impartial. Well, that's good. Roottrees Corporation. Yeah. Much has changed over the last many months at the Roottrees Candy Company. One of those things is its website. Although during your last search you only got a good look at the history page, the design itself has clearly become much more sleek and very corporate. Gone is any history focused on Elias Roottrees. Instead, the site seems to focus on the present status of their candy offerings, with high-quality JPEGs of each of their products. There are also some small ads for Root, which is a clothing company owned by the Roottrees Candy Company. There is a small section at the bottom that lists the president as Clark Rafferty LaRue. A short bio mentions that he was responsible for some of their marketing before taking the reins after the unfortunate plane crash. There's also a small memorial section for those that perished in the plane crash, including the Roottrees sisters, Carl and Brenda, Kurt Johnson, Mark Santresh, Trish King, and Eliza Nicholson. Okay. It's a lot here. Root. The Root website has a small memorial section to the deceased members of the family, but it contains no new information. The most recent catalog had an entirely black cover with no text on it. On the leadership page, you learn that Root is currently managed by the designer who was apparently Brenda White's second in command. You don't recognize her name, and she seems unrelated to your search. There's also a scholarship page. On it, you find information about the Roottrees Sisters Fashion Scholarship. It is awarded to 3 underprivileged high school girls each year who wish to pursue a career in fashion. Apparently, it also gives them an opportunity to show off their designs on professional models on a real runway. According to the site, the fund was created directly from shares that would have contributed to the inheritance of the Roottrees sisters if they were still alive. Like other aspects of the Clancy Trust, it's managed by Ruby Legal Enterprises. Okay. Ron Roottrees. Ron was announced as president of Roottrees during the Roottrees Rift, but the next press release immediately reversed the announcement and instead stated that Ron and Clark would take over. A few weeks later, Ron was dropped from the title entirely. There are hundreds of results about this development, but most articles are retelling of basic details. Some veer into heavy speculation based on an article about Ron in Business Watch. Ron has also done some interviews saying that the truth of what went on behind the scenes is not something he wishes to discuss. Said he hopes to release a movie about it someday. 3 weeks ago, Ron's mother, Gwen, died in Paris, France. He and his brother Robbie have seemingly made amends. Oh, that's good. Oh, so much. So much here. Oh, I should probably take notes, huh? I don't know. Oh, man. Six Pieces, Unwrapping America's Sweetest Family by Sam Madsen was released in early 1999, perhaps assisted by the still relatively recent plane crash shot to the top of the charts. Okay. Reviews were mixed, and its time on the bestsellers list was limited to only 2 months. Most reviewers agreed that the core of the book, about Samantha's fathers and the struggles they faced, was compelling, and that the takedown of the hypocrisy of Elias Rootree was deserved. However, many took umbrage with the timing of the release and the tone of the book, which seemed vindictive. The fallout from the book led to the Rootree Company scrambling to release a statement, and due to a conflict of leadership, famously released multiple conflicting official statements over 3 days. Oh, okay. This confusing move was referenced in popular culture due to late-night sketch about indecisionitis, but more traditional analysts have been calling it the Rootree Rift. A few months later, due to Rootree mania, the book re-entered the charts and sold even better than the first time. Okay. In the wake of Six Pieces' release, Lauren Rootree was tracked down by a reporter as being in one of the most upscale memory care facilities in Pittsburgh. She was relocated back to Pennsylvania when she began suffering from Alzheimer's. There was a minor backlash towards the reporter that tracked Lauren down because they were caught standing on a ladder holding their camera over the privacy wall to take a photo of Lauren and her son Clark sitting on a bench outside near a small pond on the premises. Yeah, she's just an old lady. Okay. The Clancy Trust is the Rootree Company's unusual legal arrangement and the motivation for most of their major financial decisions. As a recap, the entire family earns inheritance directly from the profits of the candy company, as well as their sister clothing company, Root. This means that nearly every Rootree can potentially have a say in the company's high-level operations. Historically, this has caused the family to be slow to approve any major expenditures that could significantly dig into the profits. After the release of Six Pieces by Sam Madsen, the Clancy Trust came under heavy scrutiny. Sam, her children, and her grandchildren should have all been covered under the trust, according to the wording revealed during an internal family conflict between Ron and Robbie Rootree. It seems that those who wrote the trust, Clancy Edward Rootree and at the direction of Elias Rootree, purposely deceived the rest of the family about the exact details of how it worked in an attempt to keep Sam and her father, Edward Clancy, his own twin brother, in comparative poverty. Because the rest of the family made money hand over fist, they had very little motivation to question their understanding. Sam's book revealed this to the public, and it did not go over well. Clark Rafferty LaRue took over the company, and his most celebrated move was his first official one. He ensured Sam's family would get their share. To help facilitate this, the inheritance aspect of the trust is now under the control of a third party, Ruby Legal Enterprises. This ensures that the financial motivations of Rootree family members will not interfere with the investigations into potential new Rootrees. According to Clark's letter, however, some family members are still doing their best to slow the investigation by refusing to answer questions. Okay. All right. So Clark, I think, gets exhausted. Candy. I mean, I guess we'll do Elias. Elias and Gwyneth Roottrees were never really celebrities, but the general public's perception of them as classic faces associated with the Roottrees Candy Company had always been in somewhat high regards. This was Elias's intention as a family man with his family brand. Since Six Pieces, the candy company has placed much less of an emphasis on Elias as a historical brand-connected figure, but there have also been those who have argued that it was his right to decide how to split his inheritance and that he did nothing wrong. This has led to some heated television exchanges and countless op-eds. The first Anderson Maple Farm only used to be a popular tourist attraction during the summer months when it had special tours. However, it has since seen an explosion of off-season business as some religious and political groups decided to visit to show support for Elias and Gwyneth's traditional values and financial rights. This rise in support was in turn followed by pickets from gay rights activists when some particularly inflammatory organizations made their pilgrimages. Amongst all this conflict, the farm has since been shut down, seemingly indefinitely. The website says check back later, but has no date listed. The quotes from Bess Williams' book appear to have been taken down. What? Who's Bess Williams? Okay. No, here. I did Google Root already. Okay. Let's see, Roottrees sisters. The website you used to initially place Reno, Rose, and Riley is still up, though instead of the cheery pink black background with purple text, it's now more traditional black text on a white background. The young webmaster has turned the site into a memorial for the sisters and their father. It seems like she did end up getting her ears pierced like Rose after all. Good for her. Nothing relevant, just a picture of the girls with a sad MIDI piano playing in the background. Very good. From other higher profile sites, you find that a charity has been set up in the girl's name. Nope. Okay. Actually, many websites and news articles eulogize Carl Roottrees along with his daughters and wife Brenda. As far as you can tell, Carl and Brenda Roottrees never had any marital issues. You do come across an article about a Kristen Valdez who claims to have been Carl's high school sweetheart before Brenda. She does not make any claim about having had a child with him. She just appeared to be paid to talk about his early life. Most of it's boring. She says they met when he was sent to a private school near her hometown and broke up when he graduated and moved back to Butler County. Oh, so she was near like that academy they talked about. Okay. Okay. Kurt Johnson. Kurt Johnson and Mark Sanchez were the pilot and co-pilot of the Roottrees jet during its crash last December. Although the NTSB investigation has not been released, foul play has been ruled out. Trish King was on the cabin crew of the Roottrees private jet. Elizabeth Nicholson, who went by Eliza, lived in a house with her family about 200 yards from the section of woods where the plane crashed. She reportedly had a heart attack during the commotion, and her family were unable to reach emergency services due to the overwhelmed phone lines and the ongoing storm. Her son-in-law managed to flag down an officer responding to the plane crash was too late. Oh, that's sad. So this is going to pull up like the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Rootree chat. Oh, okay. National Transportation and Safety Board in the U.S. They're responsible for investigating crashes. Okay. Okay, so that was that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Ruby Legal Enterprises. Ruby Legal Enterprises is the name of the law firm that has been hired by the Roottrees Candy Company. The company is named after its head lawyer, Ruby Spratt. Can't find much about the company from before this year, although all of the articles tell the same tale. After the fiasco of the Six Pieces, the revelation that the Roottrees internal law group was complicit in such a cover-up, they hired outside counsel. Ruby Legal Enterprise Group now seems to have ties to multiple aspects of Roottrees, including the candy company and Root. They recently in the news due to a high-profile lawsuit they raised against Cicely Sanchez. Okay, Ruby Spratt. Ruby Spratt, like her legal company, is relatively elusive. The most complete source of information you can find from before her time with the Roottrees is from the website for a magazine owned by a major airline. She was the subject of one article from a recurring series about modern-day success stories. Ruby grew up in foster care but excelled at school and earned a scholarship to study at Mid-Eastern University, where she graduated at top of her legal class and was quickly hired as a lawyer for a prominent firm. There are a few high-profile corporate-involved cases she was part of. One was as a legal consultant for a class action lawsuit against a manufacturer of steering wheel covers. Another was to help a local gas station chain in her hometown of Portland with the rollout of a promotion that allowed gas station customers the ability to bet on the price of gas. The blurb ends by calling her new firm a double threat. Her company services are a cross between a traditional lawyer and a PR manager. Okay. Oh man. Cicely Sanchez is the author best known for Portrait of a Changed Man, released in 1979. Her follow-up, Foreign Gospel, did not perform as well critically, but still sold quite respectably. She has written a few more books since then, including a biography of Van Gogh, but her first two are her claim to fame. According to a site about authors, Cicely is known for her nonfiction with a focus on exploring darkness in the human psyche. Recently, Cicely appeared in a magazine called Cotty with an article about a book she had been commissioned to write for Guy Hudson. The magazine and Cicely herself were immediately issued a cease and desist due to its inclusion of pictures that she never had the rights to publish. The issue was pulled from store shelves, making it an instant collector's item. Okay, this is There we go. The publication, as far as you can tell, has no consistent theme. It tends to contain tabloid-esque articles that appeal to a wider variety of audiences and appears in many grocery stores near the checkout line. Unlike traditional tabloids, it doesn't typically feature celebrities on the cover. Instead, it tends to latch on to and create sensationalist headlines about whatever subject appears to be popular at any given time. In recent years, this has included Beanie Babies, Magic Eye images, and even Red Bull. It has often come under fire for printing fiction among with facts. Piketty gets around this by saying in every issue that all of its articles are all the hearsay it's fit to print. At one point, Piketty ran an article about Cicely Sanchez. She claims to have written an unread book about Guy Hudson. The article was not even the main focus of the issue, yet the magazine was threatened legally by the Roottrees Corporation. That particular issue, the Big Sass Sea Bass issue, was pulled from shelves. It has now become a collector's item, especially amongst conspiracy theorists attempting to figure out what the Roottrees company was hiding. Find a recently finished online auction that listed a copy at over $1,000, though nobody bid. Okay. Mid-Eastern University is a notable private college that advertises itself as mid-May between Maine and Miami. Their mascot is the Spectres, though they are not known for their sports programs as much as their education. Their legal and language departments are their pride and joy, though they also have fairly extensive computer science and robotics programs. Along with other prestigious schools that haven't quite reached the notoriety of Ivy League schools, some refer to it as a Little Ivy. The college has embraced this, calling the newspaper the Herald, which is a combination of Hedera, the scientific name for ivy, and Herald. Their website boasts that they have a historical technology museum on campus, including a still-functioning computer from the 1960s that takes up a full room. They also have a printing press that they use to print one special year-end issue of the Herald each year. The Herald is a school newspaper of Mid-Eastern University. It appears to be available in your periodical archive. After a bit of research, you discover, okay. So we're getting a lot of stuff. None of it applies to the family tree as of yet, though. Oh, yeah. Okay. The Roottrees riff. 3 press releases from the Roottrees Candy Company after the release of 6 pieces were referred to as the Roottrees Rift due to the clear conflicts between them. The first was fairly standard. It stated that there was no president of the Roottrees Company, but that the entire family was made aware of the release of the book and that they would be meeting as soon as possible. Only then could they verify the legitimacy of the claims it raised and decide next steps. The second release was emailed to business newspapers 3 hours later, and announced that after a vote, Ron Roottrees would be taking over temporarily as interim president. It also went on to state that Ron was aware of the book, had verified the claims within, and would look into compensating Mrs. Madsen and her family immediately. It also stated that the company lawyers would be taking immediately steps with the family to revisit the Clans of Trust terms to make sure nothing like this could happen again. It was quickly clear to business reporters and analysts that the time between the 2 press releases would not have been logistically sufficient to gather a majority of the family, even using conference calls. This was reported on many news channels, and a third, much shorter press release came the next day. It claimed that a draft of the announcement was made prematurely and that Clark Rafferty LaRue and Ron Rootree would be taking over the company's first joint presidents. It also stated that any compensation plan would be on a stringent verification process. Okay. Business Watch ran an article about 2 months after the Rootree rift about what really happened with Rootree. The article mentions that nobody from Rootree that they reached out to was willing to go on record. Instead, the timeline of events has been constructed from public record, accidental leaks, and a source on the inside. The only parts that are due to you are also the most vague parts, the ones supposedly confirmed by their anonymous source. The timeline says that the family actually held a preliminary vote after Carl Rootree died, but before the release of 6 Pieces, decided they wanted Ron Rootree to take over because of his experience running RR Productions, because he was well-known and well-respected Rootree. But Ron seemed way too eager and personally motivated. They were worried he would gut the Clancy Trust to remove Robbie Rootree. The family was notoriously unwilling to do anything that could risk their wealth. They stalled, and Ron became frustrated with the delay. When 6 Pieces came out, he saw his chance to force action while the family was in the limelight and released the press release himself in an attempt to get the ball rolling faster. This caused chaos within the family. They tried to save face by allowing Ron to take over as co-president with Clark, but according to Business Watch's source, Ron was impossible to deal with. He seemed like he was unwilling to protect the Clancy Trust, and they eventually let him go. After that, the role passed solely to Clark, who nobody was excited about, but seemed like the safest choice. Okay. Clark Rafferty LaRue, as well as Ruby Spratt and her company, Ruby Legal Enterprises, were featured in Business Watch after the company took over as the keepers of the Clancy Trust. There's an article about the process that interviews both Clark and Ruby. It seems that Ruby actually approached the Roottrees sometime in late March, after the Rootree rift, but well before Rootree Mania. An accomplished but relatively low-profile lawyer, she offered to work for very little money so long as she could be the public face to build her reputation. The family quickly jumped on this chance, as many family members often attempt to spend as little as possible to keep their shares in the Clancy Trust as high as possible. After looking over the Clancy Trust more carefully than anyone had in years, Ruby came to the conclusion that Clancy Edward Rootree's implementation was not legally sound and that there would be constant legal challenges without some modification. The family decided to put her in charge of the trust, both legally and as public face, to prevent further issues. Ruby Legal Enterprises has been described as a mix between a law firm and a PR firm. Her first move was a short trial run before she was even hired permanently, was to help them draft a public statement accepting Sam into the family and declaring that they'd began to address the Clancy Trust. This went quite well, and they officially hired her in early April. Ruby Legal is now in charge of many financial aspects of the company, including verifying any claims to the trust and organizing the various charitable causes, such as scholarships, that had been set up in the name of the deceased. Yeah. Okay. Gwen Rootree was a somewhat well-known actress who was active in the 50s. Their biggest roles in a minor hit like Guys Like Us. She died in Paris, France about 3 weeks ago. After leaving Hollywood, she made no effort to stay in the limelight, and most obituaries tend to focus on her largest role, Guys Like Us. Not much is known about her death except that it was announced that she died peacefully in her sleep while being treated for a sudden severe case of pneumonia. Before that, she had apparently been in relatively good health, according to her friends and family in Paris. She was 67. Oh, she young. Robbie Roottrees was released from French prison after serving a few years for assault. His embezzlement and arrest were partially featured in Six Pieces, as Robbie's participation in the Clans of Trust was a key piece of evidence in Sam's favor, and have since become much more publicly infamous. He has not yet returned to the United States, but when journalists reached out to him recently after the death of his mother, he had issued a blanket statement a few days ago. The death of my mother was hard on our family. My brother and I, after spending time together caring for her and mourning, have finally made amends. It was a highly transformative few weeks when it came to our relationship. I'm in recovery from my addiction, and a major aspect of that process is that I wish to stay private. Fair enough. 6 pieces. Okay. Sam Adson. Okay. Sam Madson's book was released earlier this year and details the truth about Elias Roottrees as well as Sam's father, Edward Clancy Roottrees, and John Miller. You help verify her story, so much of the book's contents are familiar to you. That said, Sam had some sections on other family secrets and rumors. Much of it didn't matter to the primary purpose of the book, and some of it is new to you and may be important to your research. These sections have been added to your notes. Okay. Okay. Mixed reviews. Indecisionitis was a disease coined by a popular sketch show as part of fake pharmaceutical advertisement for JIT Together. While the segment isn't fully about the Roottrees Candy Company, it was released in the weeks after their bizarre response to the news of 6 Pieces and references the recent news. In the sketch, a woman ordered a number 5 at a drive-through speaker, and then after pulling forward, she changed her mind at the window, asking to switch it to a number 3. This caused a lengthy backup and annoyance among the restaurant's employees and other patrons. After she pulled away, as the employees began helping other customers, the same woman then barged into the restaurant and passed the current line, loudly complaining that she didn't receive her number 5. After this, the sketch transitioned from the restaurant scene to a pharmaceutical commercial. A doctor claims that the woman was suffering from indecisionitis, a disease that causes extreme confusion and irritability, and has recently been found to severely hinder the leaders of large corporations, but could also spread to humans. The doctor then recommends JIT Together, a fake pharmaceutical drug. Multiple testimonials use variations of the catchphrase, when I can't make my tough decisions, I've got to get my JIT together. Ha ha ha. The final testimonial included a bald man in a silhouette with a voice changer saying, I'm not comfortable sharing who I am, but I am comfortable saying that before I took over my family's candy company, I really should have gotten my JIT together. Okay. Roottrees Mania. Rootree mania immediately followed the announcement that a rapper going by 5Ps was actually a Rootree. Collectively, popular culture seemed to focus on the Rootree family and 5Ps for a few weeks before everything felt oversaturated and society moved on. Because of the 5P saga, an underlying through line to how pop culture treated Rootree mania was an excuse for everyday people to also claim they were Rootrees. Daytime talk shows had I'm a Secret Rootree episodes. Late night hosts and guests made jokes about other lost members of the family. There was a widely shared website where you could fill in your own name and find out if you were a secret Rootree. When you submitted your name, it simply said no, with an image of Clark Rafferty LaRue giving you the finger. That's funny. Oh. Rootree mania only lasted a few weeks, just long enough for Six Pieces to re-enter the charts and to trigger new printings of other Rootree-related media. This included Lauren's diaries, VHS releases of Gwen's old movies, as well as countless other unauthorized biographies, which mostly seemed to attempt to capitalize on the Rootree sisters, Carl and Brenda. These re-releases were too late to successfully capitalize on or extend the craze. As a result, most of them were failures, and countless novelty t-shirts that had variations of I'm a Secret Rootree became immediately unfashionable, though some people still wear them ironically. Clancy Edward Rootree. Yeah, I didn't get this before. And there was something else. Steamy Correspondence, Historical Letters with an Erotic Twist by Tina and Delina. In 1934, someone who goes by Patch wrote a letter full of innuendo to an unknown gentleman who it is clear she had a romantic history with. Patch is thought by the book's author to have been Patricia Christensen, a daughter of the owner of Christensen Steel. Her nickname was Pat, and were the first two letters of her last name, and Patricia Christensen was known to associate wordplay like this. Patricia, who would have been in her mid-20s when the letter was written, was married to an older man of no notable status. This letter was most definitely not to him. There are also a few passages after the steamy bits that mention a daughter, leading Tina Angelina to theorize that this letter was written to the father of a child she hid from society in some way. The letter ends on a mention of a twisted twin that seems to evoke imagery from classic literature. If not for her story, yours and mine would be the most tragic tale ever told. How awful is it that such beauty was ripped from its rightful fate, and worse, sent to live in possession of your brother's twisted twin. Left an outcast, forced to a life of labor under a wicked relative, it's like something from the start of a children's fable. She deserves not the life he has been sentenced to, and I can't stand to be apart from you both. Someday I shall return to you, and I pray that he has not corrupted her to know his sins. I swear that on that joyous day, with all the strength I can muster, I will fight for our child's freedom. Let us pray her fable has a happy ending. Tina has no theory for what the more cryptic parts of that mean. Was this it? Oh, that's really great. Yeah, okay. I thought there was something called like Family Man. Yeah. Best Williams. Fairly poorly received book. Few copies. 1920. Recently republished by the same company that printed Lawrence Diaries. They wish to capitalize on Roottrees media. It did not work. Best Williams. A reprinting of an old book about Elias Roottrees. It's blatant corporate propaganda. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Bess Williams' book is that one. Okay. Okay. You discover a trivia page that lists common trick questions. The answer is, what are the first names of the famous Roottrees girls? List the answer: Raina, Carly, and Riley. The explanation below the answer states that Rose was originally born Carly Rose Roottrees. Apparently, her parents had planned to name a son Carl Roottrees Jr., but after finding out they were having a second daughter, they called her Carly. Sometime in the early 90s, and now preteen Carly strongly expressed her dislike that her sister had an RH name and she was the odd one out. So she began to go by her middle name. Okay. Kristen Valdez, yeah. Oh, okay. The Roottrees curse. During your initial search, you came across Thomas Overwood's conspiracy page about the Roottrees. 8 months later, the page still exists and is thriving. The visitor counter has reached 7 digits. Many older articles have been replaced. It seems that the recent uprising in Roottrees news has left Thomas Overwood with a constant stream of events to base new theories on. More than one of his theories involve Roottrees deaths being faked. According to Overwood, statistically, when you have this many high-profile people who have died in a family, the odds that one of them faked their death, it's just math. This newfound focus on death faking seems to coincide with a post mentioning that he's begun believing the guy's not dead theory. In his own words, my eyes have been opened. All of this is beginning to make too much sense. One of his posts details the belief that Ron Roottrees is still in charge when Roottrees' death was faked, and that Clark is only there to throw people off. Apparently, this allowed Ron to travel to France to develop their new candy recipe in secret. Another is about the rapper 5Ps. He can't possibly be a Roottrees. One of his first album songs, when he was performing under the devil name, actually mentioned he wanted to have sex with Raina. Okay. Not even Sam Madsen is spared. According to Overwood, the author of 6 Pieces isn't real. Sam Madsen is an anagram for Am Madness. They're purposely leaving hints for us. He claims that by using 6 Pieces with Lauren Roottrees' book as a one-time pad, he has begun to decrypt a cipher. Most of the cipher has seemed meaningless, but he managed to pick out the words people and vastness as is working on figuring out what it means. There's also a request on the bottom. Next year is a leap year, and Overwood is looking for funds and volunteers to catch the Roottrees red-handed in Operation RT-29. He specifically mentions not to volunteer if you've ever drunk Spirit Cola, but doesn't go into why. Oh, buddy. The Guy's Not Dead conspiracy stems from a website that focuses on clues that the Roottrees have supposedly hid all over the place. This includes on candy wrappers and print advertisements and television commercials and their jingles, etc. The story, according to the website, is that Guy Hudson was a terrible president of the Roottrees Company and introduced multiple failed products. Something needed to be done that would put the company immediately and instantly back in the favor of consumers. So they killed off Guy Hudson and replaced him with a new president. This move immediately garnered sympathy, and the company recovered the next year, more popular than ever. The next president stayed much further out of the limelight. Some people even theorized that he was simply Guy Hudson in an elaborate disguise, which is why he stopped appearing in public. The people who run the site are asking for help. They're certain that there's a clue to all of this that accidentally leaked in a banned article from the magazine Picody. On their page is a scan of the magazine's cover, the interview with Cicely Sanchez about Guy Hudson, and some photos. You add them to your evidence. Sweet. I don't want to touch 5Ps quite yet. Okay. Okay. Cicely Sanchez. Cicely Sanchez. Out of print. What if everything you stand for, everything you know to be true today, could disappear in an instant? All of your politics, relationships gone in the blink of an eye. Would you still be you? Cicely Sanchez tells the powerful true story about a man who woke up after being saved from drowning in his backyard pool and became an entirely different person. Included are interviews from those that knew him best before, as well as a one-on-one chat that paints an entirely different picture. You won't be able to put it down without wondering, what if that were me? Foreign Gospel. Foreign Gospel tells the tale of a man from the Catholic Church who claims he was told by God that he should travel to Thailand and begin to preach, specifically with the goal to convert 10,000 people. He returned to the United States after just over 2 years, claiming to have succeeded. This book tells his version of the story, while author Cicely Sanchez also traveled to Thailand to investigate these claims and talk with some of the so-called converted. Okay. If I just search Van Gogh. Okay. In an issue that focused on talking toy fish and the demonic messages it supposedly said as the batteries ran low, Piketty had an article about a canceled book by Cicely Sanchez. The book's subject was Guy Hudson, and the issue was said to contain pictures that Cicely did not have rights to publish. Because of the pictures, this issue was pulled from store shelves, making it the subject of some conspiracies and an instant collector's item. These archives is incomplete. Okay, I have that cover. Yes. This is an interview with Cicely Sanchez, an author. She was hired to write a book about Guy Hudson. Bass Elbub. Could this popular gift be filling homes with satanic messages? Cicely Sanchez reveals Roottrees secrets. +2. Okay. You claim you have been paid a significant amount to write a book about one of the Roottrees, Guy Hudson. He was president for a short period at the end of the 70s, right? Yeah, I met him on New Year's Eve, actually, the last night of 1978. Guy liked to throw big parties. I was just coming off of Changed Man. Oh, Portrait of a Changed Man. Gotcha. And looking for my next project. When his wife learned who I was, she invited me to the party and they cornered me to talk about a book. That was the first time anyone recognized me from my work. I had finally made it. The book they asked me to write sounded great, but then none of the stuff that made him interesting was allowed to stay. Chop, chop, snip, snip. Anything with even the slightest threat to Guy's image ended up gonzo. What's the stuff that made him interesting? At his core, Guy was not complicated. In fact, I think I could boil him down to 2 traits. First, he wanted to be seen as the second coming of the great Elias Rootree. And second, he'd never be satisfied living the life needed to be seen that way. He had this fortune and his good looks, and he really liked to exploit that to pick up women. Ooh. But he couldn't let anyone else know, so it cost him a lot to cover it up. That was the only big interesting aspect of Guy. He was James Bond trying to convince people he was Mr. Rogers, I guess. Mr. Rogers, really? Maybe that's not the best metaphor, but Elias Rootree was boring as all hell and all about family. Guy did everything he could to be seen that way. After I submitted my first draft, he sent me this garbage book, The Rootree Legacy, with Elias on the cover. The last time he and I met, he had even switched out his orange suits for the same green ones Elias wore. And remember fancy flavors? Guy knew that part of Elias's legacy was the 5-piece flavors. So that's what Guy tried to do. Caviar was a disaster here, but it was actually somewhat popular in Brazil for whatever reason. In Christmas '79, he went to Brazil to open the Rootree Brazil factory. Guy was always hopping around the world trying to create that success. So how come the book never came out? It's complicated. I had an out in my contract. Surprisingly, Guy signed the contract my lawyers wrote without running it by anyone in his legal department. I could pull my name off the book at any time, but Guy still got the content. After I left, it probably got a lot harder to convince any real publisher to give it their time. Okay. Is that what I have? Yeah, Family Man, The Rootree Legacy. Okay. Rootree Brazil. Rootree Brazil, sometimes erroneously referred to as Rootree Brazil, is one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Rootree candy. It was developed as part of the Rootree Everywhere initiative beginning in 1979. Unlike some of the other Rootree Everywhere results, Rootree Brazil seems to be a success. You do some rough translating and find a significant amount of information about it. Okay. Sweet Jesus. Brazil was the only region in which caviar-flavored 5-pieces were a hit. Primary reason was the factory still exists to this day solely to create that flavor, which comes in its own standalone 5-pieces bag with Portuguese writing. A small town named Alvalagos, near the municipality of São Bernardo do Campo, became the chosen location by the Rootree Candy Company after a newly elected local politician named Edson Soares heard that they were planning a new factory and petitioned them in early 1979. The factory was controversial as locals did not want it there. The Rootrees visited Brazil around Christmas and managed to break ground on the project. Since then, however, it has been operating relatively smoothly except for 2 incidents. The first was Incendio de Bordo in 1982, and the second was an unsuccessful strike in 1995 that involved all the factory workers being replaced. The factory was originally built and run, according to paperwork at the time, by a small company called Nova Corporação de Doces Brazil, in which literally translates to New Brazil Candy Corporation. This company no longer exists. Not much information has ever existed about it. The Rootrees now run Rootree Brazil entirely. 1111, make a wish. Rootree Everywhere was an expansion in the late 1970s. It coincided with some other large changes at the company and had mixed success. As far as you can tell, the different companies related to it were all formed in very different and sometimes haphazard ways. There's minimal organized information about the history of the expansion itself online, but you can glean the following. Rootree candy had been distributed globally to certain markets approved by Elias as early as the 1940s. This included places like Canada, Mexico, and select countries in Europe, mostly the UK. Rootree Everywhere involved Rootree's expansion to other major markets that were assessed to be ready for Rootree. This started with 4 that it had no share in: Australia, Brazil, China, and France. Each of the countries had an entirely new company formed, mostly by making deals with local distributors and manufacturers. Rootree Aus, Rootree Brazil, China Rootree, Rootree France. Well, let's try these. Search. Oh, sweet Jesus. Sao Bernardo do Campo is a real place in Brazil. A game designer by the name of Jeremy Johnson looked up cities in Brazil that had a lot of manufacturing so that he could place a fictional factory there. He did not want to offend any Brazilians with the tale he was writing that involved corruption and politics, so the small town name he made up, Alvalagos, where the factory was located, was invented by mixing two other regions, Interlagos and Alvarenga. So wait. So it's not named that. Jesus. This game is clearly inspired heavily by Oprah Din and her story. I hope it stands on its own and that it feels like more of an homage than a ripoff. Thank you, Lucas Pope and Sam Barlow. You both ran so I could walk. It's inspired by my participation in the world's largest trivia contest on 90 FM in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Thanks to everyone who organizes that competition year after year. Shout out to Portesi Frozen Pizza, which I've never tried but have heard so much about. Lastly, it's inspired by a core memory I have browsing Beanie Babies / Mortal Kombat fan sites somewhere around 1995 on my local library's dial-up connection. Thanks to the patient librarians in Bethel, Connecticut, who took the time to explain the internet and help change my entire life. If you're seeing this message, please come to the game's Discord and simply type "I found the thing" in all capital letters in the "I found the thing" channel. The Discord can be found on the game's main menu. Okay. So is this like a real dude? Seems like. Yeah. Okay. Edson Soares was a Brazilian politician. You find a dissertation published by a college student as part of their PhD in history. Focuses on the rise of democracy in Brazil. It seems up until 1988, Brazil was run by the military, and the politics during that time were often a hotbed for corruption and nepotism. The paper tells of a few politicians of that time, including Edson Soares. Edson is a former mayor of Alvalagos, Brazil. Before politics, he was a manager in an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. He was put in charge of Alvalagos by the military government in 1973. As mayor, he used his manufacturing background and knowledge of American business to establish new factories, distribution plants, and other business ventures in the area. This had two side effects. First, he became quite rich. Second, many locals were forcibly relocated. This did not make him a popular mayor, and what the paper speculates was a move to counteract this unpopularity. His wife Sonia was discreetly put in charge of a television station called Telerede. He often used this connection to ensure supporters would appear on local television spouting his beliefs and emphasizing his political victories. He remained in office until 1988 when he was defeated in the first election after the military government was no longer in control. After this election loss, he quickly left the town behind. It is not known where he has gone, but the dissertation even speculates he likely fled to stay alive. Okay. Sonia. Now this might be something. Flavio Soares is a young Brazilian newscaster with a bit of a cult following. The discourse surrounding him is, to put it in polite terms, lewd. There's a website about something called fan fiction that has a small section dedicated to him. Okay. Seems that women and some men of a wide variety of ages and writing skill tend to find him worthy of inclusion in their stories. You skim some of the tales there and learn that a common thread is that he's currently dating supermodel Ashley York. Many stories either seem to ignore her existence or get her out of the picture rather quickly. There are also more traditional fan sites that list some things about him, including his age, his sign, his favorite food, his mother's name. Flavio translate to golden hair. One website with a signed publicity photo of Flavio seems to confirm this. The photo has been added to your evidence. Okay. 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 Telerede is a former television station in Brazil. It came into being in 1970 after a vacuum was created due to the removal of a different network at the hands of the Brazilian military dictatorship. Not a whole lot. Man. I guess. God, there's like an unbelievable amount of horseshit in this one. Okay, back to Hudson. He was the president, right? Do you know why he never released it himself? Wait, when did he go to Brazil? In Christmas. Okay. If I had to guess, his family very wisely put a stop to it. Mid-1981, months after I had already moved on, he called me back and showed me a final draft. You know how expensive it is to publish one copy of a book? It had my name on it in big, shiny, embossed letters. Like all problems in his life, throwing money at me was his attempt to win me back. But it had half the page count, and the narrative was torn to bits. No thanks. The dinner was good. Imported steak that likely cost as much as a month of my mortgage. And we all got pretty drunk. He sent his mistress, Susie something, into the bathroom to proposition me. Oh. I see. remembered her from our trips overseas. Save. What can you tell us about the family? Any insight into the scandals from the recent book by Sam Madsen? I actually haven't read it. I just skimmed the sections on Guy to see why people were suddenly calling me up to ask about the man. I'd say she did well for what she had to work with. She only had rumors, whereas I spent time tailing him. Sometimes he knew, sometimes he didn't. He invited me to join them when dealing with Roottrees Brazil, but I actually had people on him when he went to Australia, France, and China too. When he met with someone, I'd figure out who they were and how they were involved. Doubly so if the meeting happened when he didn't want me to be around. Despite his best efforts, I got the whole truth, including things his family never even knew. For example, the daughter of his business partner in Australia, I think her name was Robin, he and she definitely spent a few nights together that he didn't want his family to know about. But I did. Guy. Madsen got things wrong. Sam mentioned Guy's affairs and treats them like most people would logically think to treat them. Like the infidelity was a problem for Patricia. When his wife first approached me, though, it wasn't to talk, if you get my meaning. On paper and in public, it was a marriage like any other, but in reality, it was more of a mutually beneficial arrangement. They both got what they wanted out of it, the same thing. Okay, and what was that? I'm assuming I only have to spell it out so you can get it in writing for your readers. Women. Patricia enjoyed the company of women, and the swinger scene made that more accessible. I told her I wasn't interested in her and Guy. I found out later that if I had said yes, her next question would have been whether or not her husband actually had to be there too. Guy, on the other hand, was seen as a traditional marriage, and in the same time could bend any women that found him charming. I can assure you he was exactly the type of marriage he was interested in. Okay. All right. That's interesting. To Natasha, kisses from Brazil. 18, I feel like, is like really young to be a news anchor. This photo is a first from a magazine interview with Cicely Sanchez. Both photos were instead under the shared label. There's a Christmas tree. Haha. Okay. I think that might be Zach. Oh, the international aspect. I don't even want to get into that. There's so much. 4 companies, however many pages deep those go. It's a lot. Okay. Sam's book has a few different passages about her own history with the company and the rumors and gossip she collected during that tenure. She ran the farm for a period starting around 1968, after the death of Elias Roottrees, until her daughter Gwyneth took over in 1984. Most of the relevant rumors coincide with the reign of Guy Hudson, who took over as president in 1978. Sam was very much not a fan of Guy, and according to Six Pieces, it was an open secret within the family that Guy was very much not a fan of remaining faithful to his wife. Many of their hires at the time were young, single women, and Guy often spent lavish amount of money on private parties. This was 20 years ago, and Sam warns that most of it is hearsay. Still, you find the following information that may be relevant. One of Sam's farm supervisors was named Elizabeth. Elizabeth had a daughter who Sam never met, but worked as one of Guy's secretaries. According to Elizabeth, a caterer from a local restaurant called Antonelli's met her daughter at one of Guy's parties. So, Elizabeth's daughter met a caterer. Met her daughter at one of Guy's parties, and they eloped quickly due to a pregnancy. Elizabeth wasn't aware that the party was for swingers. Rumor has it that her daughter showed up with Guy and didn't seem comfortable switching partner. Okay. Guy's main positive contribution to the company involved expanding to markets previously untapped by Roottrees. However, when he went on trips overseas, they were often for weeks at a time, and Guy was known for spending more time and money on unofficial business than meetings with distributors and manufacturers. It was said he bribed at least one politician to open a factory in Brazil. I've done that. Or I've followed that lead. Okay. Okay. There is also a section where Sam speculates that Elias may also have cheated on Gwyneth. Gwyneth was always much kinder to Sam than Elias was, and was the first to invite Sam to family events. While she has no hard evidence, Sam always got the impression that Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias into allowing Sam back into the family using some kind of leverage, instead of it being a natural course of events. She mentioned that Elias and Gwyneth were known to loudly argue, sometimes about another woman. Sam also says her son Ernie once asked her, "Who's Beth?" because he overheard them yelling about someone with that name. As far as Sam knows, Elias once had a secretary named Elizabeth, a different person, but she never met her. Okay. Okay. Oh, Lordy. The dictionary defines propaganda as information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. But if they were to replace that definition with a picture, it would be a picture of this book, the book tells you nothing about Elias, and from what you know of his true feelings towards some of his extended family, you're not sure it tells you anything true about Elias either. The reissue of this book was so lazy that they reused the famous photo of Elias from Business Watch, whose copyright has expired. The best thing it has going for it is that it's only 85 pages long. Well, great. Okay, so the tree is a root tree. So 2 root trees got married. Oh, geez. Guy Hudson, who was only president for a few years in the late 70s, he suddenly rose to prominence again after 5Ps appeared on the cover of a magazine holding a photo of Guy and his mother. A few people that existed adjacent to the company in the 70s have come forward with stories about debauchery and swinger parties. Guy liked to throw large holiday parties whenever he had an excuse, and they often got very out of hand. This fact has led some people to speculate that the night he died in a car crash, he was drunk or impaired in some way, but the Butler County Police have released multiple statements and ample evidence that proves decisively it was not foul play and that no party had taken place. Roottrees' lawyers have been quick to threaten litigation to anyone who tries to disparage Guy or the company in public. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The Heteron. Ruby Spratt graduated top of her class from Mid-Eastern's Legal College. Her valedictorian speech was somewhat controversial at the time, so it was quite serious with a heavy focus on wealth inequality. This didn't go over well with the predominantly middle to upper class audience in attendance. The editor of the Herald at this time said Ruby, unsatisfied by simply earning her place at Mid-Eastern with a full scholarship, went on to earn a captive audience of her peers with a perfect GPA. It felt like the ideal occasion for a celebration of an undoubtedly incredible individual. However, by the end of her speech, there were many in the audience that wished that neither of those events had transpired. It was a passionate attempt to use her soapbox to proselytize her fellow students and their parents into the religion of poverty. But unfortunately, judging by the science, they remained unconverted. Okay. Well then. Okay. Is there anything about this? Bess Williams was an author born in the late 1800s. She lived just outside Miami and died tragically young in a major hurricane that struck the area in 1926. Bess has a minor history with the Roottrees. Her only notable book, Family Man, is widely considered blatant propaganda about Elias Roottree. It had been all but forgotten until recently when it was re-released during the height of Rootree mania. There's a site dedicated to hurricane statistics that also mentioned Bess Williams. The Boca d'Oro Library, not far from where she lived, was partially destroyed in the hurricane. When they rebuilt, they named the nonfiction section after her. The library was expanded again in 1950 and then closed in 1963 when multiple larger libraries opened in the surrounding area that made it redundant. Sweet. The Boca d'Oro Library no longer exists. You find multiple libraries in the area. According to the website for the library system in Miami, the building where it once sat is now the Miami Print Museum. Searching for the Miami Print Museum, you come across their website. It states their hours and lists of exhibits. The building is very small, admission is free, and they only have room for a few different displays. One of the exhibits in their courtyard, which includes a fountain as well as a statue of an unknown author. Picture has been added to your evidence. Another is a printing press that was used by the Miami Sunday, now defunct weekly newspaper. The last is the original print of Cuba by Cubans, an art book. Okay, the Miami Mercury Sunday. Jesus. Merging two smaller failing newspapers. One larger failing newspaper. Okay. Sweet. The Miami Mercury is now defunct. It was partially archived. Okay. Cuba by Cuban. Okay. Cuba by Cubans is a book of paintings of Cuba released in '63. It's credited to Marcia Marvin. First glance, it doesn't seem to be related, I think. We'll find that it will be Cuba by Cubans. La, la. Out of print. Cuba by Cubans is a book of paintings. On second glance, it still doesn't seem related to my search. We'll see about that. Okay. Okay. I think that might be a good stopping point. And I need to dig in to this international stuff. And it just seems daunting at this point. I'll probably be streaming later. Me and Lou and Jane are going to be playing some more of The Forest, I think, later today. So I'll see you in a bit. All right, save. Stop streaming and